All right. So I want to welcome every single one of you to our latest Connect Through and Three community conversation. These are a series of conversations that are happening at the end of every month, um, where we're looking at how do we take all the individual conversations that are happening at the work group level, and then how we report out as the structure that you're seeing broadly speaking of Connect Through and Three being more fully developed. And so right now, instead of waiting to have residential, community, larger stakeholder feedback as we go through these conversations in a way where, hey, we're going to unveil this all at the right time. You're going to see this all happening at once. Rather, as these conversations are continuing to develop, they're informing this larger strategy. And so we're going to continue to stress that joining those work group calls, for which we are going to continuously drop the link to do so in the chat box. So for folks who are interested in joining the various ones, and we're going to go over those working groups as well in this call, but giving you all an opportunity to help steer that work, that is very critical. So that way on these calls, it doesn't feel like, you're just a listener, rather either leading the discussion or weighing in on it, as we're going to have other folks do later on in this call. And so just as a larger refresher, just want to say that, Connect 313 and what we're doing here, we're not saying anything around the line of we're replacing the work that's already being done. Rather, we would like to do more work as it relates to bridging this digital divide in a sustainable, operationalized capacity. And at the same time, how do we look to empower folks who've been doing this work for quite some time, as well as how do we look as new resources and new persons are coming into this fold, that we're able to empower them to go back to their respective leadership or to their respective population that they serve to continue doing this work more. And so you can think of Connect 313 as a larger umbrella for which activities related to the digital divide, bridging that in Detroit and even larger regionally, are going to sit. And so oftentimes people will say, oh, it's Connect 313 the city of Detroit? It's Connect 313. I saw something about Quicken Loans. Is Connect 313 them? And the answer is, it's all of us. And that's what it's meant to be. And so as we look at the tagline that I am trying to get people to wrap their heads around much more, Connect 313 powered by Detroit. That's literally what it's meant to be. So anyone who is working in Detroit, anyone who lives in Detroit, or anyone who has work in Detroit, that's where we're trying to get people to realize. And so what you see on the screen, when we look at the vision, it's pretty straightforward, ensuring every Detroiter is fully digitally included, improving the quality of life for all residents. Which will kind of, if some of you who remember the 313 Connects days, that's when, we first started. The 313 Connects days was make Detroit the national model for digital inclusion. That vision hasn't gone away, but there's a vision right there too. So just keep that in your back pocket. And the mission, we have a time frame here to put in place by 2024. All means for the means for all Detroiters to have access to appropriate devices, internet connections, technical support, and digital resources for improved learning, employment, and well-being. Those factors that you're going to see at the very bottom, the learning, employment, and well-being, that's what we really want to focus on as much as possible. So it's not that we're just giving people or providing means for people to get connected just for workforce sake. It's a yes and every single time. And so really want to make that very clear. And the goal, honestly, there's several goals, but the ultimate one is establish Connect 313 as an effective distributed coordinating mechanism for all digital inclusion stakeholders who are collaboratively share responsibilities, insights, resources, and expertise. So just think of that larger part when I said at the beginning, operationalizing. Again, if we have a focus on bridging this digital divide, if we know that it's not going to be bridged by us getting $1 million or $1 billion, we really can't spend our way out of this issue. This is going to be a persistent challenge. And so what we need is better coordination. As more resources are being made available, we are able to have a coordinated way of assigning people, assigning work, making sure that work is getting done. So that way, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're not talking in the same way that we were talking, again, at the beginning of these discussions. So it would be an ultimate failure if we are continuously doing things in silos 5 years from now, and we're not able to concretely point to strategies that have actually taken us from this point to this point, and we get there by coordination. And so that's the ultimate goal. However, there are multiple goals that other people have that are in line with this. So this isn't meant to be the end all be all, rather a foundational point for us all to engage in this work in a way that is germane to the larger vision which is ensuring all Detroiters are connected. Next slide. And so one of the things that I can't stress enough is the value of partnerships, specifically with just some rock star individuals within these companies and companies broadly speaking. And so really what helped for those of you who in the beginning were looking at Connect 3 and 3 and the 3 and 3 Connects, we were talking from a standpoint of, okay, let's get a group of people around this. And thanks to you know, the Rocket Mortgage Classic and Quicken Loans leadership, they were able to create some great momentum within the Rock family of companies, and specifically provide seed funding for this latest iteration of Connect 3 and 3 that you are continuously seeing. And for those of the first time, we'll be seeing it today. You know, it's a huge shout out to Quicken. So I just want to take this time to turn this over to Laura Graneman at Quicken Loans Community Fund to be able to talk a little bit more about their involvement in this initiative.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks everybody for being here. If you were here last time, you know, really grateful for your continued participation. If you're new to the conversation, welcome to the conversation. And again, thanks for taking the time to talk this through and be part of this really amazing coalition that I hope is going to be long lasting and really sustainable in terms of how we are able to help support all of the great work that many of you on the phone are doing and amplify, scale, build together to make sure that our communities are set up for success. So, you know, as Josh mentioned, we've done so much work to be able to get to this point. The Rocket Mortgage Classic and Quicken Loans, we're very, very proud to be able to be a part of this conversation and to be able to support it through the initial seed funding. So that funding, we're going to talk a little bit more with United Way, but that funding is going to be able to support some initial investments over the next few months and over the long term. And this community council is really going to be key in helping us determine what are the priorities for the community that are really going to move the needle in this space, both now and over time. So really, really grateful to be here. And I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Tanya to talk us through from the United Way perspective, because we're so grateful for United Way's partnership, from the United Way perspective, to talk through a little bit more about that initial seed funding, where we're making investments right now, and how we're going to continue to work with all of you and our working groups around continuing to prioritize additional investments for our community. So thanks again for having me. Looking forward to working with all of you, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Laura. As Laura mentioned, we're really working together to build a structure, and we're working as democratic and as transparent as possible. And in that effort, we also understood that there are a few gaps that we know we needed to fill to really build and lay a solid foundation for this work. And in partnership with the city, with Josh and others, and Quicken Loans, we really looked at what are the gaps that we need right now. And so as initial investments, we've contracted with local and national consultants to really kind of help fill knowledge gaps. So we've contracted with Civics Analytics to provide expertise on developing a data trust and create a strategy to really maximize our use of the data. And we've also contracted with Data Driven Detroit, who will be the partners, the local partners, to build and run that data trust. Additionally, we've supported filling the gap for students in partnership with United Way and Skillman and Detroit Children's Fund, Quicken, DTE, and many other partners who have contributed by providing a donation to support efforts to close the device gap for charter school students in the city of Detroit. I think it's also important that we mention how the Connect 313 staff is evolving and helping to lay the foundation of this work. It's really growing, and organizations, various organizations, including Microsoft and City, have hired staff as in-kind support rather than being paid out of the funder collaborative. And so we're so appreciative for that as well. But that's really the initial investment and some of the things that we knew we needed to do to fill knowledge gaps to really lay that solid foundation. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Josh, I believe.
Yes, and so one of the things that we're really trying to focus on at the same time, in the spirit of, hey, we're not just coming along and saying that we can do everything as, Connect 313 being its own thing and just steamrolling existing efforts. We want to take a point to acknowledge just some fantastic folks that I'm sure everybody on this call knows, are familiar with the work that they do. But it's just something as a bit of a tradition. And I'm going to go into something else later on. But however, I wanted to take the time to elevate both Camille Walker, who's on our call right now, as well as Richard Grundy with Journey, to share the work that they do, which is kind of contextually speaking to the value of this Connect 313 partnership in a bigger way. And so, Camille, first, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Perfectly
Thank
fine.
you for having me. Well, so I'm the executive director for Empower, and Empower just entered this market about a year ago in the fall of last year, after really vetting and determining if this was the right time for us. And this was pre-COVID, and they determined that, 30% of our young adults are not engaged in higher ed, and many of them are underemployed, and they're sitting right here in our community. And then on the other side, so I came from the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program and MEDC. I'm an economic development person. Been in this community for 10 years, shepherding a lot of the projects that are big and growing now. I was the one that brought them into this community, or actually just, got their incentives so that they could do what they're doing. And I would hear over and over again how, I think people can't find talent. Where is our pipeline of talent? And I could grow, and I would love to hire from this community, but I can't find the individuals. So what Empower, what we're focused on now is basically we provide free training, 23 weeks of training, IT training, technical training, and work readiness for young people, young adults, 18 to 25, and we're placing them into opportunities. So we launched our first cohort in January with 21 students. We placed 16 of those 21 students into full-time IT positions and internships with Microsoft, Collabel, RT Software Solutions, Shift Digital, Little Caesars Arena. One guy in particular, just a quick case study, a young man who lives on the east side, and he's 21. And in January, he and his cousin were movers. And when COVID hit, actually before COVID hit, they joined our program because they were in these low wage, underemployed positions. And they both have a little bit of college, they were athletes. So they joined our first cohort, took a chance on us. And now one of them is placed full-time with Little Caesars in their IT department. The other was placed in a data center for an internship. And so I got a call yesterday from the young man saying, wait a minute, my cousin is having way more fun than I am in his internship because he's in a full-time job with Little Caesars, and I'm just doing the same thing every day. So we continue to support our students. And I had to explain to him that there's a difference between, he was making little or nothing in January, and now he's making $45,000 in an entry-level IT role with full benefits. And it's not fun, is it? And so now we're having to coach our students through that. But all of that to say, this is a pathway for young adults from underserved, or what I like to say, underestimated communities, to move from being in low wage, low jobs into the middle class. This is our pathway, and IT is the name is the ticket. And now 80% of our students either go on to full-time employment or continuing education. That's our national stat. And in Detroit, with our first cohort, I see we're right on track for that. So there are some efforts out here to address the digital divide during transitioning during that COVID time. A lot of our students, they were showing up to our classroom in Davenport University. I have a permanent location across the street on Lothrop and Woodward that we can't use. We're gonna be virtual for a while. But prior to COVID, they were showing up 5 days a week, 4 hours a day to get this training. Volunteers were coming from all over the country, but largely from our community, to inspire our students, to show them give them access to what IT could look like and how it's going to change the trajectory of their lives. You know, we teach our students, you know, with this under you, with these certifications under your belt, now your kids can be educated in great, you know, schools. Now you can send your mother to Jamaica. So they're on that. They want to do that. But the bigger scope is this digital and inclusion. I would hear about it. I mean, Joshua's been doing this work and advocating for digital inclusion, but it wasn't actually until we transitioned virtually that I realized how real this is. And we had to ensure that our students had the proper equipment so that they can continue their training and so that they can sit for their certifications. I found that when the testing sites closed due to COVID, some of our students just didn't have the connectivity that was needed in order to pass their certification exams. And that's what we're addressing. We figured it out as InPower. My team, you know, got the hotspots and gave them access. I even had a couple of students come to my home and take their exams, but we figured it out. But it's a shame that we had to figure it out the way that we did. And going forward, I'm so excited to be a part of this initiative because now I see firsthand that it's real. The digital divide is real. And being a part of the solution is really what InPower is here to do. And so, hey, we're gonna be a tech hub, right? And I'm excited to be able to present InPower to you. And in the fall, we're going to be training 50 students, and I'm going to be placing them into internships and full-time jobs. I also have a pipeline of students who have graduated, and now they'll be getting assisted in placing into permanent positions. So now I know the InPower model that is working around the country works here, and I'm happy to be able to present this to you, to this body, and thank you for the spotlight opportunity, Joshua.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, one of the things that you had mentioned, well, of many great things, is the underestimated. And I think that is something where that continues to play out over and over and over again. And we are going to lose that cover before long, because then people are going to know exactly what we're doing here, which goes back to the secondary vision of Detroit being the national model. However, also want to transition this to Richard Grundy. You know, Richard has been a fantastic advocate on the ground. He was one of the people that I met during the 313 Connects days, and just gave me just some great feedback, as well as, you know, as you start meeting other people. I was like, oh, did you meet Richard? Did you meet Richard? Richard, journey. I'm like, yes, I've met him. And so, you know, I want to take the time to also highlight and give Richard the floor a bit to share about his work, you know, prior to COVID, during COVID, and just for other folks to get to know him if you don't know him yet.
Thank you, Josh. I'm Richard Grundy, the co-founder of Journey. We're an organization focused on empowering young Detroiters through tech education, entrepreneurship. So we do that through teaching them how to build websites, mobile applications, and then how to monetize that skill set through freelance and entrepreneurship activities. It seems like just yesterday, Josh, we met and you were talking about some of the ideas that you wanted to do. So I want to thank you for first inviting me here. Second, for getting the ball rolling and corralling all of these people together. You're a great asset to Detroit. So don't think about going back or anything like that. We got you for good, man. So what we've done in the past with our programs, we do a lot of collaborating with other organizations and partnerships. So prior to COVID, we partnered with like the Ford Motor Company Fund and the Ford Resource and Engagement Center, United Way, and also GDYT to run programming for young Detroiters, whether they're in middle school or whether they're in high school. So prior to that, we would have a course 6 weeks within 120 hours. We would teach those students how to build websites and mobile applications, and then they would either design the mobile application for a large organization such as United Way, or they would build a small website for a small business, a business website for a small business owner. So that's what they actually did this summer. I got to be honest, when COVID hit in March and everything shut down, probably a week after, I was talking to all of my friends who have kids that may be in the suburbs or whatever, and they're doing their classes virtually. And I knew all my kids in Detroit, a lot of them, they were not able to get their schoolwork done. And it wasn't about entrepreneurship or coding anymore. It was about math and English and, you know, these very core subjects and skills that are linked to basic survival. And it actually took me to the place where I felt like I wasn't even fighting the digital divide anymore. So to see all of the work that all of these organizations have done, that Josh kind of corralled for Connect 313 to get those laptops out to the schools and United Way and everybody, I'm really thankful for that. And I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see that our students now have a chance at education again. One of the other activities that we started probably about 2 years ago, there was an event called Code Detroit that Quicken Loans sponsored. And it was one of the greatest experiences that I had because I got the ability to collaborate with people that are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. That Journey is doing pretty much, right? A different spin. I know one of those people are on the phone right now, Daniel Pop from Code Key. And basically we introduced 2,500 kids to coding within a 4-day span. Connected to that, we also got a large donation of decommissioned laptops. And the idea was because of this experience that we had, we know that there's other people, other organizations that are trying to do this very similar work to us to impact. I like I'm going to use the phrase high potential, right? These high potential students and high potential people from this community that are doing the same thing. And the idea was, okay, we don't need to keep all of these laptops for ourselves. You know, we're running a lot of programming, but maybe not 100, students at one time. Let's loan them out. Let's loan them out to other organizations doing the same thing so that we can kind of help to expand that reach. And that we call that the Community Tech Trust, kind of like the library. We loan those decommissioned laptops out to other organizations. They replace them so that everybody has a chance to use them. So we continued that activity in 2019. We loaned out over 600 laptops that year, not even officially launching, even though we're officially launching now. But that was what we did with those laptops then. When I think about post-COVID or in the middle of COVID, because we're still during COVID, how we've kind of changed our activities, we've been able to do our programming for high school students virtually at a pretty seamless transition, right? Just have to make sure that everybody has laptops, but our partners were all prepared. United Way is one of our partners. GDYT, they kind of made those decisions early on so that we can transition to those. And then the other thing that we did is that we started thinking about how we could actually get hardware in the hands of kids so that they can still do some of those hands-on activities as far as robotics and stuff like that. So we've been looking at low-cost hardware such as microbits and microprocessors and sending those out to students for our classes so they have a different experience at home where they're actually working on things. So those are the activities that we've been doing. We've actually found a home at Marygrove Conservancy where we have those laptops, and we're always taking on more donations of decommissioned laptops. We're always looking to partner with other organizations to kind of help us image and prep those laptops for use, and we'll probably start to distribute some of those throughout the community as well, not just for youth, for the high potential youth, but also for adults that are trying to skill up. I know I have a young daughter, she's 17 months old, and we have to video chat with her grandparents and her great grandparents, and if I miss those calls, I'm in big trouble. So we want to make sure that we get this technology out to the senior community as well, and run training and programming to show them how to use these technologies. So again, thank you for having me, Josh, and sharing this. And I'm glad to be a part of Connect 313 and, just pushing this community of high potential people further. So thank you.
Heck yeah! Thank you both Richard and Camille. I mean, this is one why we do this work. I mean, there's just so many diverse folks who are leading this work and the way that they're doing it, and the passion that they're bringing to the table. It's undeniable, and so we're thankful to have folks like you who are just stewards who want to see this stuff prosper. One of the things I'm going to continuously ask for the participants to make sure that in the chat. That you're dropping questions, because what's going to happen next, I'm not going to say this is where the questions start, but this is where we start to say, okay, Connect 313, nuts and bolts of it, the bones of it, the structure, what is it, and how does it differentiate from what we're seeing on other efforts, as well as in other communities? What makes it so spectacular? Well, maybe I'm saying it's spectacular, but that's up for you all to say. So I'm actually going to turn this over to Jordan at the United Way. She's just been an incredible rock star. I love working with her. So Jordan, please give us the structure overview.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. I love working with you too. We've been really excited at United Way to participate in the development of this initiative. It has been just a real pleasure to work on. So today we wanted to kind of share with everyone on the call, all of you who are part of the Community Advisory Council, a little bit more about the structure of the initiative. Like when you think of Connect 313, it sounds so big and hard to kind of figure out, like, where do I fit within this huge structure? And really, it just comes down to three things. There's a group of people who are generating ideas and making decisions, turning those ideas into, we have decided to move forward with this idea. And then there's another group of people who are turning those decisions into actual plans. So really kind of delineating what are the specific, little chunks of that work. And then there's a group of people who are implementing those plans. They're putting those plans into action. So we have, the governance layer, which is, everybody on the call, everybody who's part of the council is included in that group. You have the management layer, which is, really about staffing, the folks who are like writing contracts and, developing scopes of work and that kind of stuff, and, really kind of laying it all out. And then you have the organizations who are on the ground doing the work, putting the plans into action. And we can talk about, kind of what that looks like. So when you think about operationalizing Connect 313, this is something that Josh has brought up a lot. This has come up in a lot of different conversations. It's more about what Connect 313 does. And what Connect 313 does is it's a group of people who are working collectively to close Detroit's digital divide. So the three different layers that we just kind of talked through are the governance, which is the group that steers the collective work. So kind of generating the recommendations, providing all that feedback and that insight, and really getting the community voice baked into all of these ideas, and then moving them into decisions. So approving those recommendations, allocating funding and resources to them, and making them something that people can act on. Then you have the management layer, and that's the folks who are staff at these various agencies that Tanya referred to earlier. And those are the folks who are managing that collective work. So they're the ones who are receiving those decisions and saying, okay, this recommendation has been approved, there's been funding allocated to it, and now we have to actually produce a contract with a specific organization or vendor that really details and breaks down, here are all the steps of the work that needs to get done. And then you have the more, grassroots, you have that implementation layer, and that's all the people who are doing the work. So they're the organizations who are, the neighborhood tech hubs and the organizations who are doing this on the ground, who are actually then carrying out the work that was agreed upon in those contracts and in those statements of work. And don't worry, we will have a break for questions at the end of this. So just doing a little bit deeper of a dive into that top bucket, that governance bucket, there are 3 sections to the governance bucket. So we had three layers kind of starting out, and then as you go 1 layer in, there are 3 more sections. So bear with me here. The 3 sections of governance are the board of directors, the community advisory council, and the executive committee. And so when you kind of think about how that decision-making process goes, you have a recommendation, there's an idea, and that is typically developed by a council committee. It starts at a subcommittee and then moves up to a committee and then is presented to the council. But ideas can also be developed by board members. If they have something super exciting that they want to contribute, they are more than welcome to do so. And then, and this is critical because this is really part of the heart of Connect 313, there is a period of feedback from the entire council. Every person on the council gets to weigh in. So there's always going to be a time period when recommendations get vetted by the whole council and everybody gets to say, oh, I love this idea, or, oh, did we consider that there's this other organization over here who's doing something super similar and we never even reached out to them? Like, why weren't they looped into this? So we really get a really solid vetting period with the entire council. After that, it goes to the executive committee to be voted on if it's under 50K. And if it's over 50K, they then pass it on to the board. And that's where it gets approved and where funding gets tied to that approval. So when we think about the Community Advisory Council, there is, again, a layer under the Community Advisory Council, and that's these committees. So all the committees are the same exact names as those work groups that we have been sharing and that we went into some detail on our last call on July 30th. But now we're starting to think about how to kind of firm them up from a work group where people might be kind of jumping in and jumping out or moving from work group to work group, and really kind of firming them up into a more structured committee. So those committees would each have a chair and possibly vice chair, up to you guys. But the governance committee would for sure have a vice chair. And those 6 leadership positions get voted on by the entire council. So you'll see that on the timeline that there is an election process coming up, and that's what the council gets to choose, who leads all of these committees. And the reason that that is so important and so exciting is because the leadership of those different committees, those chairs, also get to sit on the executive committee, which means that when funding decisions are made, when they're talking about approving a recommendation and allocating funding, the council has direct representation into that decision-making process. So not only do the chairs of each committee get to sign off on those recommendations before they go to the whole council for feedback, but they also get to sit in and vote on which of those recommendations are going to get approved and get resources allocated to them. Furthermore, there will also be representation from the council on the board. So even those larger funding opportunities, we still have members of the council sitting on the board. So that way we're getting that democratic view of the entire council. Your views are represented at every level of decision making. So just kind of walking through that decision-making process, we did share this slide last month, and it's been updated a little bit to reflect some of that kind of new framing. So really just thinking about the fact that the committees are where those ideas are primarily being generated, and they are firming up those ideas into a recommendation that then goes to the Community Advisory Council for feedback. So the Community Advisory Council gets to review that whole recommendation and really kind of make sure that it's solid before it goes to the executive committee, who can approve it if it's under 50K, or send it back if it needs a little bit more work, or it goes to the board and they have the power to approve it and allocate funding at that level if it's over 50K. So just kind of circling back, we have those 3 different layers of the operations of Connect 313. And I hope that, you know, you guys get a little bit better of a sense of how it all comes together now, because I know there was a lot of questions on our call last month about like how that governance actually happens. And you can kind of see now that the governance is really about getting the decisions made and then moving that along so that those decisions can be acted upon. So now we're going to have a little question break. Amanda, or if anyone has any questions in the chat, or if anybody wants to ask anything. Happy to answer.
Hi, this is Camille. Is there any thought on the timing of this? I mean, we've come a long way since the July 30th
Yeah.
meeting or 31st meeting. So are we ready?
Yeah,
What's the
that's
time?
actually, I think it's the next slide. Perhaps.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is. Yes, so I just wanted to make sure that we were giving people a chance to ask any questions about, yes, the slides will be shared. Yes, you'll get our contact information. But if anybody has any questions about the actual structure, or if we're good, I can hand it back over to Josh.
I think questions are going to continue to come as people process this a bit more. And so, Jordan, thank you for walking through that. One of the things I want to lift up before I even go into the timeline, the reason why we're placing a high emphasis on structure is because we have to. I don't think we get longevity without structure. One of the big issues that I'm oftentimes seeing when I'm looking at other digital inclusion programs, or even just really larger movements that extend beyond one organization, oftentimes those are tied to people and not the organizations themselves. And so when it's tied to people, well, what happens if someone leaves? What happens if someone moves to another city? What happens then? And if this infrastructure isn't built, well, then we're back to square one, where we have a city like Detroit that has fantastic resources. We have incredible people here. And it's like, okay, building this infrastructure, opening it up to allowing the community to not only just vote, but to lead the decision making and be an instrumental voice in funding critical aspects of this work. I think that then allows me to look at this in a bigger way to say, okay, now I see longevity. For many of you all who, I don't know, have conversations with me, a lot of times it's sustainability, operationalizing, sustainability. Can this last? Can this, be the stress test? And so that's just something I want to lift up on the governance piece and say that this is an evolving conversation. As we continue to have these conversations and get the feedback from residents and whomever, this structure is going to continuously tweak. And so it's not to get married to any iteration, rather get married to the notion that we have governance because it is built to last. And so we can transition into the timeline. So thank you, Camille, for being so plugged in. That's some good synergy there. When we look at the timeline on July, for those of you who are on our July 30th call, that was where we just discussed the Community Advisory Council broadly speaking. Like, okay, if you understand, or if you live in Detroit, you work in Detroit, or have work in Detroit, you have a chance, an opportunity to weigh in on recommendations as they're presented at the committee level. And so for this meeting, which would then be passing off, you would ask after that meeting, well, what's happening at the committee level? Exactly what we're going to be talking about for this meeting. Really getting a better understanding of, yes, the council, we still had to reform some elements of it to make it much more clear for people, but also on the committee part, how does decision making happen? How do people, if they say, hey, Josh, I have a really, really good idea for getting kids connected. Well, that actually exists at the committee level. That is a committee conversation. And then as we look at September, the next month, it's subcommittees, because that's where we say, let's take it one step further, so that not all the work is just going to be held at the committee level. Rather, recommendations are going to be made there, and they're going to be uplifted from that committee level. But when we start getting into the weeds a bit more, when someone wants to say, hey, I have this really, really cool idea that's going to get every single senior Alexa in their homes. Cool. I mean, that's fantastic. You could literally say, because I know arthritis is a thing, so let's get them on voice technology. That is something where, as we're thinking about that, that is a subcommittee recommendation that it gets reported out at the committee level. And so if you're looking at this process, how this is meant to be broken down in a timeline fashion, every single one of these is building off the momentum of the previous. And so I need people to get this stuff now. So if you have any questions now, it's almost like, math class. Like before we go even further, let's make sure we get this. So that way you don't end up getting a whole other, number later on. And so for October, not only is that Digital Inclusion Week at the beginning, I'm going to get into that later, but this is where we start looking at more broadly, working with some of the Connect 3 and 3 entities, specifically on the council front. And then November and December, us focusing on council leadership nominations. And so as Jordan had mentioned, those 6 positions, those are leadership roles. Those are roles that essentially they have voting power. They have the power to steward resources. And so that's not me picking winners. That's not any of us picking winners. That's us trusting the community that we have, a passionate people, to pick the people that best represent them and their interests. And so those are nominations and those are elections that have to happen for those people in order for us to make that fair. And so then by January, we turn the key and we really go. And this isn't us saying that no work is going to happen and that, as needs arise, that we can't take advantage of them. Oh, we absolutely can, and we absolutely should. But as the work continues to go on the ground and as more people are coming into the fold, empowering them so that way they can do more, as well as making the case for the federal, national, local, state funding to then be allocated to the Connect 3 and 3 Fund to support this work in a broader fashion. And so that's the timeline. So next month, you're going to be getting an email that says, hey, join the next Connect 3 and 3 community conversation, and it's going to be on subcommittees and charters. And so this is meant to be iterative. We're building this off, but we need that momentum from you all to keep us going, especially reaching out into your networks to make sure that we're getting that ample representation so that when we get to the November, December period, it's not just a 3-person, 3 people who applied or are just getting in. It's like, no, let's actually make this pretty representative of the folks who have just been doing some incredible work. And so I'm going to move forward on 1, how do we get involved? That's the next slide, Jordan. Getting involved is pretty simple at the onset. We have a survey that we're going to be continuously drop into the chat that is also going to be pushed all throughout for those who are on the Connect 3 and 3 listserv. You've probably seen that survey a lot more. And for those who are not on the listserv, that's also going to be dropped in the chat for you to be able to join. But realistically, this survey is our way of saying, if you're interested in a working group that will one day soon become a committee, think of these working groups as verticals. So as Jordan was mentioning, devices and connectivity, digital literacy and digital skills, advocacy and ecosystem, those are verticals. And so if you're interested in any of those, or if your interests lie in those, well, then now's an opportunity to get involved in these working groups. We've been having these calls. These are not monthly calls, the working group calls. These are ongoing. We are having them, it feels like, not even feels like, every day we are having these calls. We actually have another one right after this meeting for structure and governance. And so this is something where, we are continuously wanting as many people as possible who have a vested interest in doing this work, joining those working groups so that way that they're aware of what's going on. And so what I'm going to do is actually uplift some of the folks who are on those working groups, starting with Amanda from United Way, who sits on me with the advocacy and ecosystem working group. Oh, I should have did shared resources first. I apologize. I'll do shared resources at the end. You all have my word.
Okay, we won't skip it.
Don't worry, we will not skip. That's a very important work group. So yeah, I'm Amanda Klein. I'm with the United Way for Southeastern Michigan, and I've been working with Josh and a few members on the advocacy and ecosystem work group. We've been meeting for a couple weeks to really just kind of establish what this work group, what we're thinking, what we'd like to do in the coming months and as this project moves forward. And we worked on kind of a mission statement, because advocacy and ecosystem is it's a lot of things. And one thing that we definitely wanted to make sure is that on the ecosystem part, we were including all of the individuals, the organizations that have been on the ground working on this, and they definitely know the lay of the land. And we wanted to make sure that we were reaching out to those folks, bringing them onto the work group so that they could definitely help us kind of navigate what this looks like. Another aspect that we were looking at is that he had mentioned fundraising. And really what that means is kind of looking at regional, state, national funders, not necessarily legislatively, but who are some other partners on the bigger scale that once this program is up and running, who can we bring in that could potentially help us make this a very sustainable program? Because I think that's the one thing that I always love that Josh says, it's going to set this apart from so many of the other programs across the country, is that this is going to be, we want this to be sustainable. This is going to be something that is going to be everlasting. And we just want to make sure that we are including that in the advocacy and ecosystem work group. Josh mentioned quickly that one of the big programs that we're going to be really pushing is the Digital Inclusion Week, which is the first week of October. We are looking at, obviously we're in the new way of doing things with COVID and we all can't get together and be in the same room. So really taking a look at what are some of the opportunities that we can take advantage of to really uplift Connect 313 and what this program is. If you are interested in the advocacy and ecosystem, I believe it's going to be in the survey, the link that we'll be dropping, and people can sign up. If you have ideas for Digital Inclusion Week, if that's podcasts, bloggers, fireside chats, if you know special guest speakers that you would be great to include in this week-long celebration, that would be amazing. But yeah, so that's just kind of a very high level, quick overview of what the Advocacy and Ecosystem Work Group is working on.
Yes, thank you, Amanda. And so if this probably feels like, I don't know, college recruiting or trying to get you guys signed up on clubs, that's a pretty good parallel. And so the next one, I want to turn this over to Kamisha Goss on the digital literacy and skills work front. She's just an incredible person. Kamisha, you got it.
Thanks, Josh. My name is Kamisha Goss. I work as a librarian with the Detroit Public Library doing technical instruction. So my background is in curriculum design and then actually running the curriculum. I've worked with children in coding. I've done productivity skills for adults, and I've done cyber seniors programming as well. So for me, I'm really interested in just building well-rounded digital literacy programs. And if you really are interested in digital literacy and skills, I think that it's important that you have empathy and patience and are very diligent about continuously learning. You do not have to already have great digital skills yet. Other skills that would be great for you to join this work group: be able to recognize a problem or deficiency. You don't necessarily have to have the answer yet, but being able to recognize a problem. If you have experience teaching or with education and great empathy for people, you would be a great fit for this type of committee to help make sure that Detroit citizens, have access to great digital literacy and skills.
And I think one of the great things that you're bringing up, Q, is on the empathy front. When we looked at the, if you all remember the mission slide at the very beginning, we focus on employment, well-being, and learning. And I'd say that out of order, but regardless, that's what we focused on. And in order to do that, I think the baseline that we're not mentioning is on is empathy. I think that when we're looking at learning, especially learning across the board, people learn differently, and we have to be cognizant of that. And it's not just saying, hey, we have this really cool free digital skills course, or you can sign up to do this or that, and we can get all these coders out here or these cybersecurity professionals. It's like, okay, slow it down. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for learning, which is great. There's a lot of ways in which someone can become functionally or digitally literate, period. but us actually slowing this down a bit to say, all right, let's acknowledge the individuals here. Let's acknowledge their well-being. Let's acknowledge in the larger context, people want jobs. People want to be qualified for whatever they need to do. People want to be able to talk to their grandkids or whomever. I think that whenever we're looking at this digital literacy and digital skills work group that will turn into a committee, Q represents an incredible person who would be very fit to lead that type of work. And I also want to turn this over to David Underwood on the devices and connectivity front. David is just an incredible community advocate, ambassador. He's just been doing fantastic work. And he's also one of the OGs from the 313 Connect days. So David, I want to turn this over to you.
Okay, yeah. Well, you call me an OG, Josh. Wow. Okay, so I'll accept that because I guess I got this gray thing going on, and I guess I do kind of look like I'm wearing my age a little bit. Hi, everyone. It's really an honor and a pleasure to meet each and every one of the individuals on the call. And I'd like to say, Josh, I just want to give you a shout out for the tremendous work that you've done in such a short period of time when I've met you. I kind of professionally, I work at DTE Energy. I've been there 37 years, and DTE Energy has afforded me a lot of opportunities to get involved in the community. And one is I ended up on a board of an organization called Matrix Human Services. Matrix Human Services' mission was to break the generational cycle of poverty in the city of Detroit. They're a 113-year-old organization, and they're still fighting a fight. So that tells us something. It tells us that that generational cycle still needs to be broken. And as a board member of Matrix Human Services for 13 years, I've seen lives changed. I've seen people come from poverty to self-sufficiency. And I watched it, and it come to find out it was through a methodology that was created by a lady named Marcella Wilson, who was the former CEO of Matrix. She created a program called Transition to Success. And that's where we are helping support people walk from poverty to self-sufficiency. And after all these years of working at Matrix, 4 years ago, I spoke with my pastor at my church, Reverend E.L. Branch of Third New Hope Baptist Church on the west side of Detroit, and where we have a very robust ministry of probably 3,500 plus members. And if you look at our church family, we are representative of the city of Detroit, which tells you that we have some of the same folks that I'm seeing transition that are worshiping with me on a regular and daily basis. And I'm saying, how can we impact our church family and in this community and where we're serving? How can we impact them and help them walk from their situation to a better quality of life? Well, that's kind of the story, because I'm representing also Detroit Community Care Network. Detroit Community Care Network is an organization of member churches that have come together to help this break the cycle of poverty. We've actually launched at my church initially at Third New Hope. 3 years ago at 2017 in June, we launched a program called Third New Hope Community Care Network. It took a group of volunteers who had empathy, Kamisha, who have empathy, have compassion, and wanted to volunteer to really make a difference in the lives of the people that they were going to be serving. We trained them in this program called Transition to Success, and we've been operating now 3 years, helping strengthen lives and build lives, and helping where we can, connecting people to resources, information, programs, services, already existing funded programs out there. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just simply acting as the conduit through which people can get access to the things they need to uplift themselves, right? So we've understanding that we got to build sustainability, just like Connect 313. So I met Josh, and Josh and I began to talk, and I seen that we had a lot of synergies going. He's helping to bridge the digital divide. I'm helping to bridge the divide between access and non-access. So our mission statements are aligned. I jumped into this work. I joined by first saying DTE should be donating all of their old technologies and tools and resources as well to the Connect 313. So I kind of went back to my corporation and I spoke with some of the leadership in my company, and they said, wow, that's a great idea. But I found out that he was already working with DTE. Thank you, Josh. He had other people on both sides of the house. I got connected because I was talking about devices. I had some phones here at the house that still I have that are old, and I got new ones. I'm like, wow, this is a waste of resources. That should be a part of what the Connect 313 is, right? So that we can take these, refurbish them, and put them in the community. That's what devices is all about. Devices is we're going to need tools to connect the people in this digital divide. There are companies out there that have tremendous amount of resources, large numbers of employees. I know Quicken Loans and other organizations like that are on the phone, and they're a part of this project. And I'm sure a lot of their assets will become a part of, if you will, the ecosystem through which we will repurpose those tools and use within this project. And so any of you who have relationships with large organizations or even small organizations that have the ability to donate their used resources and turning them into productive tools for the community, this might be a committee for you. If you happen to know or have relationships and are able to distribute and you're at the grassroots level, which I think we are pretty much the feet on the street, the work that we do. We're at the grassroots level. So now once we get these tools, how do you get them to the people that need them? Well, the churches, guess what? We are in every corner, we're on every block, and we're all over the city. And we come together to say that we're the conduit through which you can reach the people in the neighborhoods. So if you know of other organizations that are out there existing, the libraries, the other resources and tools, organizations we have that have the resources to connect and touch the people and get to the people, this may be a committee for you. So I feel lucky that I was chosen to represent the Devices and Connectivity work group, but I was just really a participant in the work group. I didn't realize now that, I have the ability to represent. So I'm happy, Josh, to have done so, and I thank you for all that you continue to do. I'm looking forward to successes and helping change people's lives and connecting the people to the resources they need to be able to improve and have well-being. Thank you, and everybody be blessed.
Well, I almost feel like saying amen after that. Thank you, David, for that. David was actually, amidst all the accomplishments, he was actually still being pretty humble there. Earlier last year, that was last year, in December, we actually did, with the help of Human IT, Comcast, and David's leadership, we were able to, and the Detroit Housing Commission, I should say, were able to distribute laptops to 100 teenagers for the holidays, as well as, thanks to Comcast, 6 months of free internet. And it's so funny because it's like, we didn't even do that because of the pandemic. It was literally the right thing to do. And so when we began looking at devices and connectivity, it's really a chance for us to begin looking at our communities, our households, and gauging what's the need there. What do we absolutely need? It's one thing to say, let's get a laptop or get a tablet or whatever, but looking at the broader picture, our community, how do we empower our community to move forward in a sustainable way, yet an impact-driven way? And so David is an incredible representative and someone who, if we're looking at profiles, would be very, very fitting to lead the devices and connectivity work. The structure and governance, I guess I can do this over to you, Jordan, because I'm going to remain true that shared resources are going to go last, and that is not a suspense building thing. It's just going to go last because I said that at the beginning.
Yeah. No worries, Josh. Thank you. Yeah, so the structure and governance work group has been the folks who are really leaning in on helping to build out the structure and governance presentation that I presented earlier. So if you are really interested in kind of developing the planning part for initiatives, less specific about the content, but more looking at the context. How does it happen? You're really interested in operations, and you're really interested in system design and that kind of thing, then you would be a really good fit for the structure and governance work group. Right now, we're really focused on kind of formalizing the committees. So doing deep dives into committee charters and looking at like the layout of the board and, who are the kind of right fits for some of these roles in terms of, skill set and expertise and background. Do we need to have people from, specific industry representation on specific committees? That's really what we are doing a deep dive on in the structure and governance work group, which has resulted in the presentation that you've seen today and the charters that we are currently working on that we will be sharing more about next month. So absolutely reach out if you are interested in doing that kind of work. We are actually having another meeting of that work group today at 4 p.m., very shortly after this meeting. So we will have just a little bit of a break, and then we'll dive right back into talking about all this again. So I believe that everyone who had signed up through that survey, who had expressed interest in that group, has been invited to that meeting series. If you did not receive an invitation, but you are interested in the structure and governance work group, even if you can't make it today, I totally get it. But please let us know in the chat or let us know by filling out that survey, and you will receive those meeting invitations. Again, that's true kind of across the board. If there's a specific work group that you're interested in, or more than one, also an option, just fill out that survey and we will reach out to you and add you to those calls. And I know that I saw a couple of people in the chat saying that they had filled out the survey and still hadn't received those invitations. So we will follow up on that. But that's essentially what we're looking for. So Josh, I will turn it back over to you to talk about the big one, shared resources.
No. See, that you didn't have to put the big one behind it. This is not the big one. This is at equal level to all the other ones. However, I will say it is a bit fine. Okay, it is a bit more interesting. So the shared resources one, think of that like special projects, where we can say we understand digital literacy and skills from a standpoint of, all right, that's training, that's upskilling. We can understand for devices and connectivity to be exactly that, devices and connectivity. Advocacy and ecosystem, informing our ecosystem, and looking at ways that we can collectively tell the narrative in a better way to help attract federal, national, state resources, whether that's attention or funding or combination of whatever. For the shared resources work group, that's where it gets those things where it doesn't neatly fit in any of those, but it yet could empower all of those. And so when we're looking at that, you'll hear conversations of us mentioning neighborhood technology hubs. You'll hear us mention community ambassadors. We'll focus on community storytelling and media activation, even going as far as to focus on the data trust or data services. So how can we operate with not just using older, antiquated federal national data to try and determine what's happening locally in Detroit? How do we own our own data? So that way we can make our own cases to empower our own community to help streamline resources accordingly. How do we look at our own community members instead of trying to look at external consultants or whomever to begin knocking on other doors and say, hey, you good? Did you know about this? Or looking at our own neighborhood technology hubs and not necessarily having to settle for spaces where our library just so happened to close in our community, or our space, whatever, it's no longer there. How do we look at operationalizing that and getting additional spaces involved in this conversation? Because we know that our residents that we serve have affinities to our neighbors and our communities. For those of us who are familiar with the Russell Woods area, that's where I live. I live in Russell Woods. And when I'm looking at places within walking distance for me, the other day someone had asked me to print a shipping label. And I was like, true to fashion, I don't have a printer, I never have. But I was thinking, well, where's the nearest place for me to go to print something? And I think that where we began, that's just one example of the Neighborhood Technology Hub function, not the sole one. But as we began looking at these special projects, those are just the ones that we're starting with right now. but there are going to be other things that people begin saying, whether at the subcommittee level or the committee level, or even at the board level. We're like, hey, we should be focusing on this. We should be focusing on creating a digital inclusion esports league. Okay, if we're going to go down that path, that is under a shared resource for which we all could benefit or use something along those lines. And so I'm not saying, I'm giving the examples of the shared resources so people get familiar with those, but I would say the ideal person is someone who can see kind of the bigger picture, the broader picture, and see things how everything can be woven together and to be collectively empowered. That is the purpose of the shared resources work group. So it's not really to get married with the shared resources that we have right now and say those are the end all be all. Rather, it's understanding the function of that shared resources group. So then if you have these other things that don't neatly fit anywhere, boom, we can plug and play. And so if you think about collectively, as you see this list of these different work groups that are functioning as committees right now prior to the elections, this is where we want those recommendations to be easily activated. So I don't have to have this lag time of saying, well, we can wait 6 months, or let's talk to so-and-so. Did you talk to so-and-so? It's like, no, so-and-so is on this committee and we can drive this work forward as the recommendations get developed. And that is across the board. That is where we get at the essence of operationalizing what we're doing. And so that's the shared resources work group. If you're interested in any of those, again, the survey, I've seen it shared like 20 times in the chat. Please, if you want to drive work, please do that. And if you're on one of these calls, you've been very persistent with the emails to me and some of the other people about how I can get involved and what I can do, fill out a survey and let's drive the work through the committees. Let's get used to doing these reps, because this is exactly where we get that operationalized structure where everyone's able to understand exactly what we need to do. And those conversations cannot exist or should not exist outside of this discussion, because this is where we're really trying to move forward together collectively as a community. So that way we're not funding anything in secret anymore. And so I know I said a lot there, but I'm going to now transition this into addressing any questions that folks might have, because I know that we said a lot. And that is, yep, that's my email. It's all right. I wanted my email there. I just saw it.
Yeah, well, we skipped over the slide, which had like all your contact, Josh, earlier in the presentation. So yeah, we definitely wanted to share your email and make sure people know who to contact. I do see, people asking about the dates of upcoming webinars. We will be sharing that out with everyone. And again, if you were trying to get onto a particular work group, we will be reviewing the results of that survey pretty regularly and making sure that folks get invited to the work groups that they expressed interest in. And again, just kind of reiterating the fact that the work groups are kind of an iterative process, so you can come, check them out, attend meetings, attend every different work group meeting once and kind of see where you fit. And then once we kind of formalize them into committees, we will have, a little bit more set membership, but there's no kind of pressure to attend every work group meeting. Is it possible to send out a schedule for the work group meetings? So I believe that most of them are just a recurring weekly meeting. We had moved some of them to bi-weekly. I'm not exactly sure where that landed because I'm not on all of them, but structure and governance is every week, so.
Yeah, so to the question about the meeting cadence. So yes, we can send those out. Some of them did move to bi-weekly, just and the nature of the work. So the shared resources one, that moved to bi-weekly. I do believe the digital literacy one did as well. However, the advocacy and ecosystem one is every week. I'm on every single one of these calls. So that's at Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Structure and governance, Thursdays at 4 p.m. I don't know why I'm doing these out of order, but every other week on the, for shared resources, those are Tuesday at 10 p.m. Or 10 a.m., sorry. And then the digital literacy ones are at 11 a.m. on every other Tuesday as well, I believe. And so, yes, when you get an invitation, you're going to get an invitation to the series. What you will see, I'm letting you know this now, everyone's hearing me say this, and this is being recorded. You're going to see an invite from July. That's just when we actually initially started getting these invitations. So you don't have to freak out of like, whoa, wait a second. Those are from July. However, it's the series that's leading up. So all of us are on those. And we're going to make a point that if you have already signed up and you didn't get that, apologies for that, but you will be included in all of this. And please feel free to share this webinar in its recorded fashion, as well as the survey to any other interested party. And feel free to also raise your hand if you'd like to be featured in the spotlight to be able to share the work that you're doing.
Oh, Amanda, thank you. She just dropped your email in the chat also. Yeah.
But I would also lift up, I think we can transition to the closeout period, but would want to lift up the Connect 313 listserv. I cannot stress enough the value of subscribing to that. So if you've ever got any email from me that says, stay in the loop about digital inclusion in Detroit, click here. that is something that is a value that I cannot stress enough. I primarily will do a first blast from there to let people know of, one, that this happened for folks who couldn't make it. This is recorded, obviously. But two, at the beginning or by the middle of September, that's where I'm already sending out an email blast for this one, planning for the next one. So that way, if you're on that, you're going to get ample time. In addition, I just make a point to highlight what other people are doing, what other opportunities that are out there. I know that there's been a few opportunities for hiring, specifically from Human IT. Even when Quicken Loans was hiring their program manager for digital inclusion, it's just been an opportunity for us to be able to use this listserv, folks who are interested in this work to lean in, and that is one of the primary ways for messaging at this point. One of the other things that I'm going to, yes, I see that, thank you. I will drop the link to the listserv. One of the other things I'm going to lift up, explain a little bit more in detail, is Digital Inclusion Week. That is something for, beginning of October. It's a real great opportunity to understand when we start talking about how the board or potential board and the governance layer can work together. Digital Inclusion Week is really something where it's an opportunity for us to showcase what we're doing. It's an opportunity for us to celebrate who's doing the work. It's an opportunity to educate the larger community as well as our own community on the digital divide, but who's doing what and why we're doing it in this way. And it's the also an opportunity for us to activate new partnerships, new relationships, and new ways for us to be looking at how to do this digital inclusion work in a more broad fashion. And so when we look at Digital Inclusion Week, that is a potential subcommittee function that exists underneath the Advocacy and Ecosystem Committee that in reality should be proposed by the board/executive committee saying that, hey, we want to do this, Advocacy and Ecosystem Committee, figure it out. And realistically, right now, we're walking through figuring out what is feasible, because obviously we have the first week of October to kick things off. So we don't have a whole lot of time, but it's more time than we had last year. But it's something where it's an opportunity for us to really drive this work in a way where people can get their reps in and understand exactly how decision-making would work, exactly what an operationalized structure looks like, and exactly a way that we're taking feedback and incorporating that into committee recommendations. And so if you're interested in, one, seeing that process up close, Advocacy and Ecosystem. If you're interested, two, in just being on that larger committee, please fill out that survey. And so I know I need to drop the link to that listserv. I'm going to find it because I actually don't have that offhand right now. But I'm going to drop that into the chat. And at the end of September, because this is, if you're looking at the cadence, end of July was our last our Connect 313 community meeting. This one, end of August. So you can guess end of September. Please get used to the cadence of like the last Thursday. I think that's just easy for us to be able to digest and not deviate from that. I think Thanksgiving might, no, that's the third, whatever. But regardless, these are being recorded. I want to, before we completely close and I end the recording on this, just ask if there's any final questions to this, because if not, then I'm going to, I'm going to drop my listserv request in the chat anyway, but want to get any questions now before we run off and then it turns into telephone and then something's conveyed that we didn't say. So if you're still in the weeds on something, let us know now.
Yes, Josh, I do have a question. As this is David Underwood speaking. Listen, Josh, I was a little remiss. Did I miss you mentioning the devices when you were giving out all the committee dates and times that those calls were happening? I didn't hear 3 o'clock on Thursday, which you guys jumped in our time zone right now, would have been the device and connectivity is at 3 o'clock on Thursdays. Did I hear you mention that at all, or was that my?
No, I didn't mention it because I forgot about it.
Yeah, see, I was feeling a little taken back by it. I was trying to be a little sarcastic, but anyway, yes, the devices and connectivity is Thursdays at 3. And if you're having this every last Thursday, I guess every last Thursday, the devices and connectivity meeting will get interrupted with the bigger meeting.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
And so if you see in the chat, I know I dropped it in there. You're going to see that public Go Delivery link. That is your link to being able to subscribe to the Connect 3 and 3 listserv. And think of that listserv as not just being a megaphone, even though it's a good megaphone, but in addition, it's an opportunity for those of you who actually have things that are going on. Hey, I'm doing this, and this is what we were doing before, which is why the listserv has been able to grow the way that it has, because there were people who were doing training already, saying, hey, Josh, we have this program that's going on at TechTown. Would love if you could highlight what we're doing. Like, sure, I'll put it out on our next blast. And so if you have programming, or if you want to learn more, you want to drop something in there, let me know. So that way, with me knowing, sorry, that's about to fall, but let me know. So that way we can get this stuff pushed out in a larger fashion. Because again, if we're looking at Connect 3 and 3, one of the functions, that's that ecosystem activation. And so earlier this year when Google was trying to do something for, I believe it was like a computer skills or digital skills summer camp or something along those lines. I'm blanking on that the specifics of it. However, they reached out and said, hey, we have this really great curriculum. Would be really great if we could push this out. And that's exactly what happened. And that happened several times with other organizations too. And so I just want to lift that up too. If you're doing other work in the community and you need more eyes on it, use this listserv too to your benefit, especially if you're more involved in Connect 3 and 3. And so I want to thank everybody for their time. Please, it is imperative to join those working groups, as well as invite your network to those working groups as well. Because what we don't want, again, by the time of elections, when we're all well-oiled machines, we have other people who might not be. And so who very well could be leading this committee work. So we really want them to get their reps in, get a familiarity with how the structure works, and get their spin on it too. This isn't meant to be, let's be exclusive, let's pick winners. No, we trust our community in totality to drive the outcomes forward and what we want to be. And so I want to thank everybody for this. Last week of September, please expect to have another one of these. Bring your friends, bring your family, and enjoy your weekends. Thank you, everybody.